They say the most dangerous people in the room are the ones you don't notice. The ones who stand in the back, quiet and observant, while everyone else fights for attention. Avery Cross was the kind of woman the world had learned to look past. To the casual observer, she was just another tired face in a government waiting room, 54 years old, wearing faded denim and a silver braid down her back. But Avery didn't carry a purse. She carried a history that had been redacted from every official record in Washington. And in her pocket, she held a plastic card that was about to turn a quiet Tuesday morning into a national security incident. Welcome to the story of the ghost in the machine. If you enjoy tales of hidden legends and the moments when the past comes back to haunt the present, make sure to subscribe. Let's step into the lobby. The automatic doors of the VA Medical Center parted, admitting a blast of humid air and the rhythmic sound of a single pair of boots. Avery walked with a limp, a souvenir from an operation that officially never happened, in a country the U.S. government officially never entered. The lobby was awash of sterile beige tiles and fluorescent lights. It smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. Behind the security desk, 2 young guards were fighting a losing battle against boredom. Private Mendoza was scrolling through his phone. PFC Kinley was leaning back in his chair, balancing a styrofoam cup on his knee. They were young. They were green. They had no idea that the woman walking toward them had been dismantling regimes before they were out of diapers. Avery stopped at the desk. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She simply reached into her windbreaker and produced an ID card that looked like it had survived a war zone. Because it had. She slid it across the counter. Mendoza picked it up, his nose wrinkling in confusion. The laminate was peeling at the edges. The photo was black and white, grainy, showing a woman with eyes that looked like shattered glass. There was no expiration date, no smart chip, just a magnetic strip and a bold red bar across the top. "Whoa," Mendoza laughed, spinning the card on the desk. "Check this out. Looks like this expired before I was even born." Kinley leaned over, snickering. "What is that? A library card from the Cold War?" He looked up at Avery, his grin wide and mocking. "Ma'am, seriously, you can't expect us to accept this. It belongs in a museum, not a security checkpoint." Avery's expression didn't change. She didn't get angry. She didn't argue. She just watched them with a terrifying, absolute calm. "Scan it," she said softly. Mendoza rolled his eyes. "Ma'am, the system isn't going to read." "Scan it." Mendoza shrugged. "Fine, watch it fail." He waved the card under the modern laser scanner, expecting the angry buzz of a rejection. He wanted to prove a point. He wanted to show this confused old lady how the modern world worked. But the scanner didn't buzz. It clicked. A heavy, mechanical sound, like a bolt sliding into place. The screen on the desk didn't flash error. Instead, it went pitch black. For a second, the guards thought the computer had crashed. Then a single golden pixel ignited in the center of the screen. It grew, spinning outward, forming a complex geometric shape, a golden triangle inverted inside a circle. Mendoza said, his smile faltering. "What is that?" The symbol began to pulse. A low, subharmonic hum started to vibrate through the desk, rattling Kinley's coffee cup. Then came the sound. Not a siren, but a digital scream, high-pitched and urgent. The text on the screen didn't scroll. It slammed into existence, red and angry. "Identity confirmed. Shadow actual. Clearance, omni-level, red." The lobby lights flickered and died, replaced instantly by the washing red pulse of emergency strobes. Heavy steel shutters began to descend over the main windows. The pleasant classic country music on the radio cut out, replaced by a voice that sounded like it was coming from everywhere at once. "Security alert. Biolock initiated. Sector 4 is now under federal containment. All personnel stand down. Repeat, all personnel stand down." Kinley scrambled backward, his chair toppling over. "What did you do?" he shouted, looking at Mendoza. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Mendoza yelled back, his hands held up as if the keyboard was radioactive. "I just scanned the card." Avery hadn't moved. The red emergency lights washed over her face, deepening the lines around her eyes, making her look less like a grandmother and more like a statue carved from granite. "It seems," Avery said, cutting through the chaos, "that the system remembers me." The blast doors to the inner administrative wings flew open. This wasn't a standard response. This was panic. A squad of armed MPs rushed into the room, weapons drawn, scanning for a threat. "Drop it," one of them screamed at Mendoza, who was holding nothing but air. "Step away from the terminal, now." Behind the MPs, a senior officer came running, Sergeant Delaney. He took one look at the golden triangle spinning on the screen, and the blood drained from his face. He didn't look at the guards, he looked at Avery, and then he did something neither Kinley nor Delaney had ever seen him do. He came to attention, a sharp, perfect salute. "Ma'am," Delaney said, his voice trembling slightly.
We weren't expecting a visit. The protocols, they're old. Old doesn't mean obsolete, Sergeant, Avery replied. She glanced at the two terrified guards huddled against the back wall. Your men seem to have forgotten that. Delaney turned on the two guards. You tried to bounce her, he whispered, the horror evident in his voice. You tried to bounce Echo Zero. We didn't know, Kenley stammered. The guard looked vague. That guard, a new voice boomed from the upper balcony, is the reason you speak English and not Russian. Colonel McBride descended the stairs. She walked with the weight of authority, ignoring the flashing lights and the sirens. She walked straight to Avery and extended a hand. Avery, she said. Tessa, Avery replied, taking hand. I thought you were dead, McBride said quietly. We all did. The file says you went down in the chaotic withdrawal from the black site. I walked out, Avery said simply. Took a while, but I walked out. McBride looked at the chaos around them, the lockdown facility, the terrified staff, the red spinning lights. She let out a short, dry laugh. And you decided to announce your return by giving my security team a heart attack. I just wanted to update my medical benefits, Avery said, a hint of dry humor in her voice. Your boys at the front desk told me I was expired. McBride turned to Mendoza and Kinley. The two young men looked like they wanted to dissolve into the floor tiles. Gentlemen, McBride said, you are looking at the only living operative to hold the Alpha 5 designation. While you were learning to tie your boots, she was infiltrating compounds that officially didn't exist. You didn't just disrespect a veteran, you disrespected a ghost. She turned back to Avery. Come upstairs. We have coffee that isn't from a vending machine, and we have a lot of paperwork to redact. Avery nodded. She turned one last time to look at the guards. The guard isn't expired, she said, her voice low, and neither am I. As she walked away, flanked by the colonel and the MPs, the alarms finally silenced. The heavy shutters began to rise, letting the morning sun back into the lobby. But the air felt different, heavier. Mendoza slowly picked up the chair. His hands were shaking. He looked at the scanner, which had returned to its normal blue idle screen, as if nothing had happened. Who was that? He whispered. Kenley stared at the empty hallway where the woman with the silver braid had disappeared. That, Kenley said, was history. The drive home was quiet. Avery rolled down the windows of her truck, letting the wind blow through the cab. She touched the pocket of her windbreaker, feeling the outline of the old laminated card. The world moves on, technology changes, faces wrinkle and hair turns gray. But some things, honor, strength, and the weight of duty, never really expire. They just wait for the right moment to be scanned. If you've ever been underestimated, or if you know a hero who walks in silence, hit that like button. Share this story to remind the world that you should never judge a book by its cover, or a warrior by their ID card. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.